Welcome to Body Kindness. Learn and grow.
This is a special podcast series where we help anyone just getting started with body kindness.
We're reflecting on how we have evolved since our earliest episodes. I'm Rebecca Scritchfield.
And I'm Bernie Salazar. Let's get ready to spiral up together.
We're going down, clown.
Well, that was me having a scale smash party, which is probably exactly like you're imagining. Had a stack of scales, hammer, safety goggles, and just took out some well-placed anger on those hunks of metal and glass and plastic that just have ruled our lives for so long. And, I'm at such a better place I don't weigh myself. I don't even get weighed at the doctors. But I know that not everyone is in that place. And that's why I created the Scale Smash Challenge, and it's absolutely free. Check out bodykindnessbook.com/scale smash. Again, that's bodykindnessbook.com/scale smash. You give your name and email. And when you do, you're going to get some emails from me. There's going to be some encouragement, some reflective journaling prompts that can help you practice self-compassion and kindness and let go of those attachments that you might have, whether you are still weighing yourself or you just fantasize about a time in your life where you swear that, you promise you'll be good to yourself if you just look the way you did when you were younger. Or if you're just thinking of those other scales that are more like self-judgments and criticisms. The Scale Smash Challenge is going to help you practice body kindness and self-compassion. I hope you'll join me. Again, that's bodykindnessbook.com/scale smash. And if you want to watch the full video of my Scale Smash party, check out my YouTube channel and click on Body Kindness, and you'll see that video and several others that should help offer some inspiration and ideas for your own Scale Smash party. Hey, Bernie, what's up?
Hey, Becca. Excited to be back. This episode was a pretty deep one, and I got some insight into your background, and hearing your letter was really powerful for me. And, I definitely shared something really personal in this episode, and to revisit it, several years later now is pretty powerful.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to having this conversation. So early on in the Body Kindness podcast, you and I would just get together and record episodes when we could. So we're getting out about one a month and felt really accomplished, right? Having young kids.
Yes.
It's like, that was great. But we eventually got to this point where, like, in my own mind, I knew that I was going back to a place in my childhood where I haven't been to in a really long time, in Berlin Lake, where we had spent a lot of weekends in the summer. Just my grandparents had a little trailer there, and it was a chance to be near water, play in the grass, have some food, and enjoy family. And it was also a place of dark times as well. Like, there was, just you get to a certain age and you pick up on a comment that your uncle says about bodies and eating and food, and like that solidifies and leads to something else. And so anyway, for me, being a mom and bringing my young kids there and trying to connect with my inner child was pretty necessary for me 2 years prior. This fall, like August would have been 3 years, like around when I remember my visit. But anyway, long story short, it was, for me, I was at a point where I felt like I needed to say somewhere other than in my own mind that I had been through difficult things and it wasn't okay, but that I would be okay. And I just think it's eventually part of everyone's journey in healing their relationship to themselves. So yeah, several years ago, I think it was monumental for me. And, I'm just excited to let listeners hear my letter and then also hear you share kind of where you're at. At the time I asked you, what would you say if you wrote a letter? And it wasn't an easy question for you to answer.
No, not at all. I'd never really thought about it. And, what came out was something that I wasn't planning on sharing, but I think was pretty powerful in the acknowledgement of it. So, and since then I've really have been able to work with it more so because of being able to say and share that out loud. I'm grateful for that conversation, and also looking forward to sharing what my letter would be like to myself today.
Like you finally know, or you have at least words. You have words.
I have some words. I have some words, and I think it's something that maybe a younger and past and even current version of me needed to hear and go back and forth with. So I'm looking forward to sharing that, and I welcome continuing growing. And I think our listeners will hear that in the letter that I have today.
Cool. So first up, they're going to hear the words from my letter that I wrote in August 2016. And then they'll hear us having a brief conversation about some of your response to what I was writing about. And then they'll hear a transition into your letter, which you have been working on for some time this year, but finished up more around July. Would you say that's accurate?
Yes.
July 2019.
Yes.
And then we're going to have an awesome reflection.
Whenever you say that, I know I'm in store for a surprise. So I'm up for it, and I welcome any surprises that you might have in store for me.
They're coming.
It's called Finally Saying I'm Sorry to My Body. I wore a bathing suit this weekend. While that's not unusual for me, a water-loving mom of 2 girls just learning to swim, this was definitely different. This weekend, I returned to the place my body hatred began. When I first feared becoming fat, when I got the urge to watch myself around food, to promise I would exercise off whatever I just ate, and where I started to believe I was more lovable when I felt thin. I came to apologize and to make amends with a younger version of myself. A girl I know was innocently trying to do the right things, but instead she got it all twisted and became another victim of our society's harsh judgment of females. We're only good when we look great, or at least putting all our effort in the pursuit. As I stood there gazing at the glass-like surface of the water, feeling the tug of each daughter's hand wrapped around my index fingers, I wondered, how did I go from the curly-haired, curious girl who spent hours making ashtrays for my grandpa from the beach clay to the one who congratulated herself for eating less than everyone else at the picnic or chastised herself for eating too much? The truth is, I really don't know. Something took hold the summer of 1990 that would lead to years of hurtful self-talk, lots of dieting, and a years-long sadomasochistic relationship with the scale. It was probably orthorexia before it became an actual word. I ate healthy food when it was around, but calorie counting, i.e. intentional food restriction, was my jam. I chose exercise classes over time with friends to crank up my calorie burn. I hid my disordered behaviors well in my normal-looking body. And nobody, not even my best friend, heard me say out loud the mean words I said to myself. The way I lived my life wasn't in the spirit of good health and only fueled my bad body image. I was building a tiny room, brick by brick, with every new rule I created. It became my own little prison that kept me from fully experiencing life at 12, 13, 14, and many years to come. It was that piece of cake I avoided at the birthday party, the dance I didn't attend, and the food I ate in secret because I was starving. My body image problems stayed with me throughout high school and college. If I'm 100% honest, they're still there, but different, like a shadowy part of my past capable of rearing its ugly head once in a while. Well, part of me wants to say, hey, be grateful you never had an eating disorder. I am, but that's actually not good enough for me. I spent years entangled in body dissatisfaction disguised as healthy habits. It wasn't dedication or discipline, it was a delusion. I wasn't taking care of myself the ways one should, making choices from a place of love and respect. I wasn't connecting to my body to respond to its needs. I was disassociating from it to somehow make it better, prettier, and more worthy. The reality is, I was just a girl in a body, no better or worse than anyone else, perfectly unique and perfectly normal. The real beauty in life is in our diversity of body shapes and sizes, and our freckles, wrinkles, and bumpy noses. We don't need to Photoshop a more perfect version of who we really are. We need to be a true friend to ourselves. We need to treat our bodies with kindness, and when we do, the choices we make are naturally good for us. It would take decades for me to learn this lesson. Even building a career in nutrition and fitness wasn't enough. I needed to find my happiness and satisfaction in the study of positive psychology, the practices of mindfulness and self-acceptance, yoga, and the school of not giving a damn about what other people think anymore. Standing there on the shore, a grown woman with more confidence and compassion than my childhood self, I held my emotional battle scars as evidence of the most meaningful insight of my life. You can't hate yourself healthy, but you can drop your weapons, call a truce, and move forward. So I did. There was no ceremonious baptism in the waters absolving me of my body sin. It was more like a silent, gentle embrace with my inner child. I'm sorry I hurt you. I'm glad you're okay. I love you. And then it was over. This weekend, I wore a bathing suit at Berlin Lake. I cried a mixed emotion of sadness for my suffering and gratitude for the strength it gave me. Because of my difficulties, I will make sure my children grow to love and respect their bodies, even as they change, even when they don't like what they see in the mirror. I will teach them it's okay to feel uncomfortable, imperfect, ugly, or gross. Those feelings are fleeting moments bound to be replaced by more positive emotions after a caring word of self-love, a tiny moment to pause and tell the feeling, I'm with you. Stay as long as you need. I'll be eating what I want, moving for my health, and making ashtrays from clay for fun. If you have made it this far, dear reader, I know you can relate to my story. Here's my wish for you, a challenge of sorts. Summer technically ends on Thursday, September 22nd, 2016 at 10:22 a.m. precisely. The way I see it, you have until then to get in your bathing suit and make peace with your inner child, or any version of yourself you have wronged. You need to have your moment so you can feel the freedom of forgiveness and brick by brick release yourself from your isolation. There's no complicated list of steps to follow, just one simple action. Say I'm sorry, really mean it, and get back to your life.
So for me, it made me also think to myself, gosh, you know what, let me go ahead and revisit how I got to maybe where I am and start forgiving the different points throughout my life that maybe I have overlooked, but I know are seriously impacting or have impacted, who I am as an adult.
Can you, I'm going to put you on the spot. I love to do that.
Of course, yes.
Can you think of one or maybe two scenarios that you feel sort of ready to apologize for now? I mean, I know you can't write a letter on the spot or anything, but are there any particular instances where you would like to say you're sorry to your body, whether it was, something general or more specific that maybe a regret?
Something about my body. I don't know, Rebecca. I think something that I haven't really talked about ever, but it's not necessarily in relation to my body. But I know that when I was younger, I did experience some physical abuse, and I think that as a result of that, I was left with feelings of not necessarily being adequate or doing things wrong. I remember being physically hit because one time I had placed a toilet paper roll the wrong way. It's supposed to go over, not under, type thing. And it's taken me a long time to kind of work through that and realize that that person that was abusing me, I want to be very specific, it wasn't any family member in my immediate household. But I remember thinking to myself, that was their issue. That's what they were dealing with. That's something that maybe they were just messed up, and that had nothing to do with the fact that I didn't know how the hell to put a toilet paper roll on in the bathroom or do anything else. And so maybe it's not necessarily body specific, but I mean it definitely is what I've kind of gone through and what I've been working with and have started to kind of make peace with, and apologize to that kid that was kind of being harshly physically punished for something that was just ridiculously a ridiculous reason.
Yeah, I mean, wow, I am close to speechless, if that is possible, but because that's a trauma. That is without question a trauma in your life. I'm glad you're doing work on it. And it could be part of your life's work. You could be working on that forever, and that's okay. It is absolutely related to your relationship with your body because remember, this is about well-being. It's outside of the way you look, and when you're, having not just physical abuse, I mean, and create a more intense fear and irrational processing of certain situations. So, and not to get too psychological on it, but just to help, in a gentle way, make a connection. It's extra difficult for you to feel in these vulnerable situations because if, everybody makes mistakes. I mean, it's debatable that there's a mistake in the perfect way to roll toilet paper over or under,
Mm-hmm.
But even so, humans make mistakes. And you were taught that if you didn't follow a certain rule, or if you made a certain person in your life angry, or and you probably didn't know what the different rules were even, but that you could in any uncertain time, without any sense of how to follow the rules and be the good boy, you could receive painful punishment. And when that happens to a person, especially at a young age where brains are being wired and that, it is all about getting to safety.
Oh,
So
absolutely. Yeah.
in your life, any amount of emotional eating, avoidance, any of those things could absolutely be tied back to those past experiences. I think you wanted to say something.
No, I mean, I agree with that. And the reason why I was able to share that, especially what my listeners to know is that because I have, really worked to be able to kind of open up and share those types of things. But no, you're absolutely right. I mean, they have definitely led to a lot of, to who I am today. And those are the types of things that when I read your letter, those are the types of things that it kind of brought to the surface, and again, it's just being able to kind of go back, truly look at the past and be able to start making some serious and meaningful peace with it. And what I also saw here, and correct me if I'm wrong, is almost a sense of gratitude for what you had gone through because it has made you who you are today. Am I wrong in saying that? And I don't mean overly applauding the battles that you or the journey that you've had, but definitely giving them a place.
Well, this is reminding me of post-traumatic growth. That's what I identify with this as, which we read about it in the Upside of Stress book that
Hmm.
we had in book club here. And you can do some research on it. I'll see if I can include one or two links in the show notes about it. But let me take your scenario first. No one ever would expect you to say, "I'm so glad I got hit."
No, no, yeah, yeah.
That's not it. But post-traumatic growth is when a person can say, if it weren't for these really horrible experiences in my life, I don't know if I would be who I am today. I wouldn't have made certain decisions. I wouldn't have taken certain risks in my life, which I am so grateful for where I've landed, that I have learned and grown from that experience. So And I think that is how I would take it. And I think that we have a shared experience in that regard, right? Like, so it's not that you're so happy that a bad thing happened to you, but that, and maybe you're kind of like more in the middle. I think for you, what has always been so important, I think one of your highest values is the kind of dad you want to be. And I think that you absolutely want to break the chain anywhere where you feel you've been wronged. I think that's why you're thinking about enjoying the beach and water with your daughter and what you need to do to get to that point. And certainly you could probably give me a laundry list in ways in which you swore that you would not be like other people who have hurt you in your life, because you didn't deserve it as a child, and that people deserve better, and you know how to make it right. But can you start to think of ways that going through traumatic experiences in your life has made you a stronger, more resilient, better person, and your life more meaningful? That's what I would start to look for. And that
Yeah.
is how you can find a gratitude.
Yeah. And for me, when I said that, to be very clear, I wasn't necessarily referencing it back to my situation. I wasn't grateful for that physical abuse that I did go through. But to follow what you said, secondly, was I mean, I definitely feel a lot more stronger. I feel more empowered, and I no longer view that as something that was. I don't allow it to be, it's not my fault. It wasn't my fault. I know that, and I can say that with 100% honesty, and I've been able to move past it and make peace with it. To be clear, it was a caregiver. As soon as that situation was found out, that person was completely removed from my life, and that's a huge credit to the strong and wonderful family that I have. But yeah, there are definitely things that I want to make sure, especially being a father, that aren't repeated, and that I am able to be completely different and incorporate wonderful things into her life. Absolutely. Yeah, that list is pretty strong.
Well, that's it for my body letter. Now, remember, we recorded this in August 2016. And coming up is Bernie's letter from July 2019. So, nearly 3 years since he started learning about body kindness. Make sure you stay tuned in. His letter's awesome, and we've got a great reflection.
Baby, fatty, chubby, chunky, big boned husky, squishy, round, fat. Can't do that. You're much too slow. Just wait right here. Let them go. You'll sink, not swim, so don't bother getting in. Life would be so much better thin. I'm so overweight. Can't find my size, thunder thighs, pants too tight, shirt don't fit right, sleeves too long, double XLs all gone, triple cuffed pants, giggles as I pass. I'm so overweight. Taking up too much space, I feel the room. I'm out of place. Big kid trying to shrink in size, never look them in the eyes. Slowly, insecurities rise. I'm oh so overweight. Stuck behind life's starting line. If only fills my doubting mind. Life would surely be all that if I wasn't so damn fat. Have I mentioned that I'm overweight? Insults, judgments, fad new diets, disguised as truths. Come on, just try it. An entire industry capitalizing on bullying you. Are you buying what they're selling? Don't worry, I did too. So overweight. Tired of all this bobbing and weaving. It's no wonder I've had so much trouble breathing. Continuous punches, even while retreating. Guard was up, but still left bleeding. Wait, wait. Wait, it's time I threw some punches too. My scars prove I can take a hit. Time to see if you can too. I choose to accept and love all of me in spite of the ignorance and negativity. Pay no mind to what they think of you. They're battling insecurities too. Pray for them. while you do you. Wait. It's time to think this whole thing through. Finally give some credit where it's due. This weight served as a shield for you, helped to shape the whole that's you, not just the out, but inside too. Not the bad, but the good in you. Wait, never again. You're the perfect weight, so join on in. Wait not 1 second more. It's a big, wonderful life that you are destined for. I'm so overweight.
Wow. First of all, that was amazing. Like it felt like a performance. And I could feel your passion in every word, but I'm not going to lie. It took like 3 lines. And it's like I had to kind of close my eyes and imagine like I was in your presence. I think as a friend, I had that response. And like you took me with you on your experience. And I mean, I have to say, like, I felt something. I felt the closest I could possibly ever begin to imagine what it's been like to be Bernie. And I felt a lot of pain. Like, I wished I was there with you and like, how can I take this away? How can I make this better? How did this happen to him? Like, through the whole time. So
Yeah,
tell
I'm
me.
yeah, so we talked about writing a letter to yourself, kind of like a sorry body letter, or just your experience, with weight in general. And I heard your letter and I loved your letter because it was really with your girls, in mind and next to you, and reflecting on your childhood. And for me, I thought it'd be really important to kind of once and for all kind of acknowledge some of the things that were endured living in a larger body as a kid. And I can honestly say that I had pretty good people around me as far as friends, and I wasn't teased too much or, as bad as I think it could have been. But, those words stick with you kind of like you had shared. And I wanted to acknowledge that first and foremost. I needed to. And then from there, just kind of talk and address some of the self-doubt that those experiences leave with you.
Mhm.
I think that, we're left thinking that we're less than, or that, life would be better if, or the reason that we don't have all that we want is because of, the weight. Or so I wanted to just kind of talk to all that. And I also I kind of go back and forth, right? Like there's the yous and the that's and the maybe it sometimes feels like I'm speaking to somebody else. And I think that, all those things are part of me. And, you see yourself from the outside and the inside, and as a child and as an adult. And so that's where all that crazy past present type talk comes from. But I think that, for me, it's always, I've always been overweight. And if you notice, I mean, it's pretty obvious in the transition where it's just overweighting,
Mhm.
overweighting for your moment, overweighting for approval, overweighting for acceptance. And I think that, there's a lot of our listeners that maybe feel the same way, feel like if they weren't overweight, they would be in that perfect relationship or have that perfect job or be able to take, advantage of more opportunity out there. And the truth is, you are at the weight that you need to be to handle all life's challenges. And what I mean by that is, I mean, you are perfect as you are. And there's things that obviously we can all work on. But at the end of the day, so much of my weight, both physical and the actual weight, has defined who I am today. And I think that I needed to acknowledge that, and to give thanks for a lot of that. I wouldn't have almost everything that I value today had it not been for my size, or and even choosing to wait here and there. But at this point in my life, I'm over it in general, and I'm living for me, and making peace, and pretty close to continually being positive about who I am and where I'm at.
Mm-hmm. Could you have written this 3 years ago?
I don't think I could have. I think it would have been less genuine. It wouldn't have been as acknowledging of all the little things that maybe I wanted to cover up or not share. And another thing, I mean, a lot of times, like, you always hear it's like in time, your life's plan will reveal itself, whatever that is. And I don't think that it was ready to truly reveal itself. I mean, I look back, and had I not been, I mean, I'm talking about the physical aspect of me, had I not been overweight, like, I wouldn't have the life that I have now. And I love the life that I have now. And if you asked me back then, even we're really before then, because life was starting to kind of unfold for me in a really good way. When we started the podcast, I just was trying to work through how to acknowledge and see that. But yeah, I mean, I wouldn't have the wife that I have. I wouldn't have, the child that I have. I wouldn't, have a deeper understanding of myself. I wouldn't be the strong, caring person that I am today had I not experienced a lot of what I've experienced due to my size and the different things that I've encountered as a result of it. So I'm truly thankful. And I do end by saying, just that big, wonderful life that that you are destined for. And that was kind of me talking to that younger child that was being bullied and didn't understand why they were being made fun of or being made to feel different because of their size. But I have lived a really big and truly wonderful life, and just look forward to the next chapters in it.
Yeah, and you're describing really an ideal example of what is known and has been studied as post-traumatic growth. So it's not, oh, I'm so glad I was bullied. I'm so glad that there was a time in my life where an adult who was supposed to look after me in whatever capacity actually harmed me physically, chastised me for not putting the toilet paper on correctly. And like nobody asked for that, but it's in the sense of how can you say as a result of this that life is better, that otherwise I wouldn't have had that life that I have now that I can appreciate if it weren't for my hardships and difficulties. And that can be a really hard, post-traumatic growth is hard to cultivate. Anyone can cultivate it, but it can be very, very hard to cultivate. And I love seeing that in you. And I'm also wondering 3 years is a decent amount of time, but try to recall for me, like, what do you think has changed in you, especially in the last 3 years, that you feel like led to you being able to write this, right? Because I definitely feel like, based on, kind of like I surprised you with my letter, right? And it was just your honest reflection. But I kind of surprised you, like, hey, what would you write if you could? And it was like, it wasn't, like you could tap into something that was important and it turns out to be really meaningful. But you also wrote this beautiful piece of art and poetry. I mean, it's a song, it's a poetry slam. I mean, I hope to see you perform this live on stage one day. Like, I'm in love with what you wrote. And I got to wonder, wow, like, what has your experience been in the last 3 years that you think contributed to this? Because people are going to want to know. They're going to hear these words and be like, I want what Bernie has. So what can you say?
Gosh, and I keep going back to this, and not that anybody who's listening needs to kind of have the same experience, but for me, it really was just becoming a parent. And I say that, and let me clear this up. So for me, it was becoming a parent, and seeing how a young being develops, and being there and witnessing it and encouraging that and fostering that exploration and that growth, and not caring or judging the falls that a human being takes in order to become who they are, to walk, to talk, to move, to develop a personality. So what I mean by it took me being a parent was I was then able to kind of parent myself, and allow for those falls and those missteps to not freeze me in my tracks, but just see them as opportunities to continue to develop and gain footing and get stronger and understand that you don't have to be perfect and you don't have to look a certain way, that no matter what my little girl does, I got her, like I got her back.
Yeah.
And to be able to then transfer that over to myself, like, hey, like, it's cool, I got your back. Like, and like, you can stumble, like, as a matter of fact, stumble, do that. That's going to make you that much better, and it's going to provide you with a sense of direction once you're able to gain that footing. So for me, when I say parenting, I mean just allowing myself to understand that growth comes when you begin to understand that life is beautifully messy.
Right. I agree. That response really makes sense to me, given your past lived experiences and what I know about you, and in what ways I can relate as a parent as well. And so I was teased more for stuttering. Sometimes I was teased about my clothes. We lacked income, and so I would wear the same clothes several days in a week sometimes. And so it wasn't that I was bullying free, but I wasn't bullied for my size, and I have thin privilege, and I have an easier passage through life as a result of it. And I acknowledge that. In your experience, I feel like that the second you learned that weight was bad, that there was a weight that was bad, and that you fit that weight, and you talked before about shopping in husky section, or like certain clothes weren't available, and that you did see, again, your immediate caregivers seem to always want to love you. And I remember we've had conversations and podcasts about you and your brother were treated differently by family members, by physicians, because you had a size discrepancy and just things that should not take place. But the second that was ingrained and then repeated, that there was a weight that was bad that you identified with, then that translates to a child's mind of I am bad, which is shame.
Absolutely.
And blame. And that, what I want to say to you about that is the point in which culture failed you. And it's not any one person. It is culture. It is society. It's the very thing that you and I both hope changes. It might not change, the way we want it to, even in our lifetime. But that's why we are so committed in our role as parents, because it's like, in your mind, it's like you can't fail your kid. And I feel that in the ways in which I was healing in my letter, my kids were 1,000% my motivation. It was like, I want to break the chain. Not that I'm going to protect them from all the bad things in the world, but it was like, gosh, if I could go back, I would. If I heard what I needed to hear, if I got the care that I felt that I needed to get, I would have done things differently. And I'm not going to be a perfect parent, but how can I try to help educate my kids about culture, educate them about the differences and from their privileges to how they can be a better human being. But that deep, deep drive to notice where culture has failed and where I can't fail my kid, I think was prevalent for both of us.
Yeah.
And they're therefore pivotal.
Well, I really enjoyed a part in your letter where you talked about speaking and sharing with your daughters that, negative thoughts may come into their mind, but there's a way to acknowledge them and then, move past them. And I think it's really powerful what you said about, that we cannot shield our children as much as we'd like to bubble wrap them up. We can't. And I just want to, much like yourself, create an environment where we are acknowledging that, there are biases and prejudices, and that those negative thoughts, and even, as they relate to their own bodies, might creep in. There's a way to acknowledge that, and then just have the tools to move on and realize that that's not there to define you, and that there's bigger and better things out there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I do think, we share the commonality in parenting, and we share this sort of like there's a deep motivation. And at the same time, anybody can tap into a deep motivation to want to move toward changing the way they think, feel, live, and kind of exist in the world. Like we're saying
Yes.
it's the parenting thing is not the variable that everybody needs. What I think, and how you kind of said that you were able to go back and better parent yourself, kind of correct the mistakes.
Yeah.
What it really is self-compassion, that ability to say it's
Absolutely.
okay, also
Yes.
acceptance.
And that's why, too, when you asked, well, what exactly was it? Like, I wanted to just be very clear, my ability to accept what had happened to me, what I've lived through, and also who I am and where I'm at now is because of, the fact that I was it literally, it physically took a being in my life that I was responsible for to be able to understand that I could do that for myself, or even what that would look like. So I really just was able to take what I hoped for her and applied it to myself at the very same time. Like,
Mm-hmm.
so, for those listeners that aren't parents, or, don't have children around them, or where I'm coming from, and what helped me the most was just really understanding that I could go back. I could unpack some things, and I didn't have to, and there's places now as an adult that I could sort them and place them and live with them, right? Throw
Mm-hmm.
some things out, but live with some things that really maybe at first I thought were messy, but really served to define me in a really good way, and give credit to some of the ugly that I think I would have previously just discarded.
Mm-hmm.
I think that that's just kind of where I'm at now, is understanding that so many factors contribute to who we are. And it's so easy sometimes to look at something and label it bad and not realize that there was good in that as well. And when I was able to kind of differently label some of those things, I found a lot of strength and power.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And, I think finding your inner strength and power is very important. It's connecting, again, everyone can find something that just helps drive that point of no return. This is the direction where I want to go. This is my values. And it's about getting to that pivot point, and that we all have an inner caregiver, and our inner caregiver, the language is self-compassion and self-acceptance. The language is it's okay. It's okay to be here. It's going to be okay. You're going to be okay, which are all things that showed up in your letter. They're things that we've talked about. I mean, frankly, it is the root of the practice of body kindness is self-compassion. How do I create a better life? By being good to myself. And it just so happens that the entry point has to do with how we think of how we show up in the world and our bodies and our worthiness, which predominantly is to diet and to be as low as weight as possible and to try to be as healthy as possible, spend all the money all the time. And really you're taking away from your life because there's biological reasons and socioeconomic reasons for, and just natural genetic reasons why we're not all going to be the same size.
Mm-hmm.
And I love how you attacked it. You said in your letter, like, oh, were you buying what they're selling? Yep, me too. I mean, I thought that was a brilliant line, but it is all interconnected and related. It's like, I think the basic tool that somebody needs is a willingness to stop and like go there, right? Kind of experience some pain, right? Pain is not suffering. Pain is, we all feel it. Nobody gets a pain-free life, but it is in the poem that you wrote, in the self-reflective journaling, in the letter writing, where you can expose yourself again to some vulnerabilities and let yourself feel those feels and start to see the discrepancies of where your needs weren't met. Where are the injustices? So it's so much less about I am the problem and I am bad, but what are the factors that led to me not getting my needs met? And in which ways do I feel sad for my inner child? In which ways do I wish that this inner caregiver could just take action right now? And there's so much wisdom in our own personal words. And there's a path and there's a guidance, and being willing to take the first step and keep walking until you get to that point. I mean, it's been 3 years, from I don't know what I would say to here's a slamming poem, Rebecca.
Yeah.
It's take the time that it needs, but do it.
Yeah. No, it was a really good exercise for me to go ahead and write this. And like you said, it's taken years for
Mm-hmm.
me to even put it down. And then when I did, I don't know what came out, but it came out, and I'm glad it did. And you know, Rebecca, I think this could be a powerful exercise for any one of our listeners, and I would definitely highly encourage you to consider writing a letter to yourself,
Yeah.
however that comes out. Maybe it's in picture form. I don't know. I mean, that could have very well been it for me, Rebecca, and then it would have been
Mm-hmm.
hard to share that letter on this podcast. But what I'm trying to get at is that it was extremely powerful, and if our listeners out there feel like it's something that could really benefit them, I definitely encourage you to go ahead and give it a go.
Yeah, yeah. And the prompt advice I would give is that it's whatever you decide is a good direction to start. I recommend that you don't worry about getting perfect words on the page. Give yourself at least 15 minutes and maybe you write a little bit, put it away, read what you wrote and just add to it. Don't edit yourself,
Yeah,
but
no,
give
absolutely. I'm
yourself
so
a
glad you said
while.
that.
Yeah.
Yes, definitely do that. I mean, this honestly was maybe 4 or 5 months of
Mm-hmm.
just putting things down, not editing, allowing myself to feel and touch the words and move them around and get mad at them and be happy with them and acknowledge those feelings and everything in between. So, and I'm not saying that it's a masterpiece. I'm just saying I needed to not have perfection in mind, and I needed to be able to, just what you said, allow myself to explore every word that I was putting down, because even the words that didn't stick around for this final draft
Mm-hmm.
needed to be spoken, needed to be seen, needed to be written.
Yeah, absolutely. And it is about the experience. You're learning just by having pen to paper, and you might go on a walk and just think about your story and even read verbal notes into your phone. Like it's all
Yeah,
fine. It's giving yourself the time to reflect, be committed to it, and like take the time it needs. Like I'm glad that you had mentioned that it was over many months, and again, yours really and truly is a performance piece. And I think that's amazing if others do videos or other performance pieces, but it doesn't even have to be that. It can be, okay, I'm going to do one letter reflection. And right now I just want to start with kind of sort of the sorry body direction and get that going and then look at it a few days later. And based on this letter, what are some positive self-care choices? What kind of compassion do I want to take to my day to day based on just what kind of healing I'm seeing I need? And that could be really powerful in just how you practice self-compassion and self-acceptance. A lot of times people, they pick up body kindness and they're, what's the new set of rules, Rebecca? And I'm like, no,
yeah,
no,
yeah.
no. You are really in charge, and to guide this, it's a framework for you, right? By like starting there and then the next month, write another letter based on where you're
Yeah,
at
no,
then.
absolutely. I think that's a really great way to put it. This is just, I chose words, you chose words. They're very different in the way that they were presented and delivered. But for somebody, it could be song, it could be performance, it could be dance, it could be through, anything, through cooking, whatever art's there. But I mean, it was very powerful for me to have done this, and
Mm-hmm.
I I definitely encourage our listeners to think about what this might look for you, and then go ahead and give it a go.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, before we wrap up, I have two kind of quick questions for you.
Oh boy, here we go.
Well, one is I'd love to know a little bit about what body image issues you still feel are there today.
So for me, it's still that walking outside shirt off type
Mm-hmm.
thing.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just very real, very true. That's the biggest one for me. I mean, other than that, like I feel so much more comfortable in my clothes and my skin.
Mm-hmm.
I'm no longer that kid that's trying to shrink
Mm-hmm.
himself down. I am, and I walk and I take up the space that I do in this world, and I'm so cool with that. But that very visceral skin to the world type thing is just, it isn't me.
Mm-hmm.
And I go back and forth with it, right? Like, is it that I'm embarrassed of my body? Is it that I've just never really done it, so it's just not me? I mean, are you gonna,
Mm-hmm.
I keep going back and forth as, someone who's maybe lived their life more modest or is shy, that maybe is in a quote unquote more socially accepted body. Are we
Mm-hmm.
gonna think that they're, not confronting something because they choose to not have their shirt off? Or yeah, I mean, you get what I'm saying. So
Yeah.
I think at this point, a lot of who I am is me. And that modesty, because of my size initially, maybe that's where it originated from, but it's still who I am, even within my, okay, see, if for me, I would be working harder at it if it was something that maybe I even did in my home, but I don't even walk around in my home with my shirt off.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not like I'm like, gotta grab my shirt before I head on out.
Mm-hmm.
Like I'm not that guy. So I go back and forth with it and just, try to talk to myself. Is it due to maybe an insecurity that I have, or is it just kind of who I am at this point?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say it is they might be a mesh, right?
Yeah.
Who
Yeah.
you are as a result of the culture that
Sure.
says, like you're in gym class, shirt skins. Oh, I hope I'm a shirt, right?
Yes,
Like
exactly.
you
No, I
have
would
that
literally,
memory,
yeah,
right?
yeah, I
Did that
would
really
literally,
happen?
yeah, oh, all the time, especially for guys. So
Yeah.
I would literally always, like, if I was a skin, I'd be like, yep, not going to be on that team. And I would literally walk to the other team. And I didn't care if
Mm-hmm.
I got a detention or whatever. I'd be like, listen,
Mm-hmm.
I'm either sitting out, getting a detention, or, that's the only way,
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Well, and I guess here's where I would gently guide you. Is it possible that you have a habit of this is just what I do, but there might be an opportunity where you can direct it to a sense of your physical comfort while you might be emotionally uncomfortable. So if you're avoiding the pool because you don't want to be in a situation where you might take a rash guard off, right?
mhm.
Then maybe it's going to the pool, even if you keep a rash guard on, because you don't want to
So,
miss out on your life,
yes. So that's a really good point. And I'm glad you brought that up because recently I've been doing that. So,
Mm-hmm.
my little girl loves to go to a local splash pad and the pool. And there's actually some really nice ancient baths here in Chicago.
Ah.
Yes. So, yeah, I go and I
Yeah.
do that. And before I wouldn't have. And yes, I have a sleeveless shirt on and it's form fitting. And maybe before I wouldn't have even worn that and I would have been
Mm-hmm.
apprehensive to go, like I'm going. So I
Mm-hmm.
don't feel hindered in the same way.
Right. Well,
Yeah.
that's a good check. I would say the next thing would be like if you think about, say you're at a bathhouse and it's something that's indoors, right? So you don't really need the rash guard to protect from the sun, but you might feel vulnerable having your shirt off. But could that be a place where you're just like, I can sit with my discomfort of vulnerability that I know it is at least in part shaped by my pain that I experienced as a child and that I've still experienced now as an adult. And I've come so far that let me try an experiment, right? 5 minutes and sit with this discomfort. And at the end of the day, thinking about exposures like that, or maybe there will be a beach trip or a pool trip at some point where it's like, it's a combination of, okay, I'll have my shirt off with some sunscreen for a little bit, and then I'll put the rash guard on for sun protection, where it becomes the thing that you're using is not to be acceptable, but more I'm practicing what could become a preference just to give myself that experience, right? Because the more as you identify as like, this is just the shirt that I put on no matter where I'm at, that is in a way a security blanket. And look, as long as life is good and you feel comfortable and happy, it's like, you don't have to take that next step for me, right? Like you live your best life. But when we're in that really uncomfortable, this is how I conform to culture, just keep your shirt on and just try to fit in, you might find it functional and yet going through some discomfort of here, I'm going to experiment with the rash guard off, and just in sort of kind and gentle ways as you collaborate with your inner caregiver, you might come to find that some things you feared never come to pass. And also that you kind of get that power back. Like I get to choose what I want to wear and when. And I would say the third thing, and not that this labor should be your labor, but you never know, besides your own personal, I exhibit these preferences now, and I know that they're true preferences, but especially when you're in a public place and especially when you're around your daughter, what are you actually saying when you're at a beach and you have your shirt off and you have sunscreen on the same way she has her bathing suit with sunscreen on, right? You put her rash guard on when you want to protect her skin from the sun, and you let her not wear her rash guard when she just wants to be free to build a sandcastle with you, right? And it's a modeling thing that for your daughter, and just, you never know what stranger is like, you know, I'm going to take my shirt off. I need to take that next step too. Visibility matters is my point. And I think you've done so much work. Not that you have to be the person to make it okay for everyone. Sometimes we find that meaning that difficulty was worth it because we also are able to model for our kids. And we also, you know, we find out that like we were inspirational to somebody else. So just some thoughts to send your way.
Yeah, I mean, I'm definitely not opposed to it. Like I'm open to it. And maybe before I would not have been at all. But yeah, I definitely see value in it. And yeah, I mean, I'll definitely consider that.
Okay, cool.
I mean, yeah.
Lastly, what's your hope for listeners in writing these letters? Or,
you know, for me, it was just being able to see my life a little clearer and to acknowledge the good, the bad, the pretty, the ugly, the just what it is. And, you know, my wish for our listeners would be that you allow yourself time, you know, to understand that it doesn't all have to be packaged up nicely. And that's not just the physical, but the mental, the emotional. And this letter, again, I picked up and put down over the course of months. And sometimes when I put it down, it wasn't because I had any type of a writer's block, but too much came at too soon, you know, and I didn't want to deal with that. And as far as our listeners go, there's got to be some of you guys out there that are waiting on something. And I hope that my letter in some way kind of helps you to realize that there's really no need to wait. You know, time is so precious, and you are wonderful as you are and capable as you are. So give it a go. I mean, the worst that could happen is, you know, you realize that it wasn't for you all along, but at least you gave it a go.
That's so beautiful. That's a beautiful way to end. And Bernie, I appreciate not just your letter, but who you are as a human. And as we both know, there's all different types of love. And I just want to tell you that I love you. I love you so much. And I care about you.
Thank you, Rebecca. I appreciate you as well. And I definitely love you. And our friendship has been really just life-saving in so many ways for me. And it's having such a positive effect, not just me, but, you know, on my family. And you know, I'm very thankful for all that we've gone through. And I'm hoping that our listeners can experience the same.
And that's our show. The podcast is made possible with support from listeners. Please donate to help offset production costs at gofundme.com/bodykindness. And please rate and review the show when you have a moment. It really matters. Let's keep the conversations going on Facebook. Search Body Kindness and request to join the group for Body Kindness readers and listeners. Have a question for us to answer on a future episode? Visit bodykindnessbook.com/question. Body Kindness books and audiobooks are available wherever books are sold. To request a signed print copy, visit bodykindnessbook.com/order. For other questions about this podcast, please email info@bodykindnessbook.com.